Hello and welcome, Chosen One. The number 333 has come to you, and this is no coincidence. This is a powerful sign of alignment, balance, and transformation. If this message has found you, it is because the universe is calling you to awaken your highest potential. Before we continue, share this energy with the world. Send this video to anyone you believe needs to hear this message. And of course, subscribe to the channel to continue receiving guidance and insights that will transform your life. Let's go on this journey of evolution together. In the game of chess, the pawn that survives the longest often wins the war. They thought they had you figured out. They played dirty, cut corners, manipulated, lied, and did whatever it took to win. And for a while, it seemed like they were ahead. But here's the thing about dirty players. Their victories are often as fragile as their egos. Did you know that 80% of people who rely on underhanded tactics burn out faster because they're too busy looking over their shoulders? While they were busy tripping over their own schemes, you weren't just playing smarter, you were rewriting the entire rulebook. This is the ultimate story of strategy. Meeting chaos, patience meeting arrogance and brilliance, meeting blind ambition. And spoiler alert, you didn't just win, you outlasted. Because when they were celebrating their short-term wins, you were already 10 steps ahead. Oh, and here's the punchline. They didn't see it coming. Number 1. Leverage their overconfidence against them. People who play dirty often think they're the smartest ones in the room. They believe their tricks, shortcuts, and backstabbing give them an edge. What they don't realize is that arrogance blinds them. When they assume they've already won, they stop paying attention to the small details, the subtle changes, the moves happening in the background. That's where you come in. Not louder, not flashier, but sharper. You let them think they were winning. You let them take the easy victories, the ones that came too quickly, too cheaply. While they were celebrating their hollow wins, you were quietly observing, learning, and building. You saw every weak spot their arrogance created, every gap in their strategy. They were too self-absorbed to notice. The truth is, their overconfidence became your secret weapon. But you didn't just sit back and watch. You made their confidence work against them. You stayed calm when they tried to provoke you. Stayed steady when they tried to rattle you. Every dirty trick they pulled only added fuel to your strategy. You didn't just react. You prepared. By the time they realized you were still standing, it was too late. Their overconfidence had left them exposed and unprepared for the long game you were playing. You didn't need to cheat or stoop to their level, because their arrogance handed you all the leverage you needed. The smartest move you made wasn't just outthinking them, it was outweighing them. You knew they would trip over their own ego eventually. And when they did, you were already poised to win. Number 2. Patience is the new power move. Patience isn't flashy. It doesn't grab attention. And it certainly doesn't feel satisfying in the moment. But it's a weapon that people who play dirty almost never see coming. They thrive on chaos, rushing to secure small victories and leaving a trail of burned bridges behind them. You, on the other hand, understood the power of waiting, not as a sign of weakness, but as a calculated move that would shift the game entirely. While they were busy scrambling for instant gratification, you were laying foundations. You didn't react to every provocation or try to win every small battle. You saw the bigger picture. You knew that every impulsive decision they made was another thread unraveling in their strategy. They couldn't afford to wait, because dirty tactics only work when they hit fast and hard. The moment you didn't flinch, you became a threat they couldn't predict. Patience gave you clarity. Where they were rushing, you were observing. Where they were trying to force an outcome, you were quietly positioning yourself for something bigger. You let them waste their energy and resources, knowing they'd eventually run out of moves. They didn't realize that every moment you stayed calm, every time you refused to get dragged into their games, you were tightening the noose around their own plans. And when the time came to act, it wasn't desperate or rushed. It was precise. They never saw it coming because they were too busy trying to outpace you to notice they were running straight into their own demise. In the end, patience wasn't just your strategy, it was your superpower. It turned their aggression into desperation and made you the only player left standing when the dust settled. Control the narrative without saying a word. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is say nothing at all. People who play dirty thrive on drama. They want to provoke you, drag you into arguments, and make you defend yourself. That's how they shift focus away from their own flaws. But you didn't fall into their trap. You didn't waste your energy trying to prove a point or clear your name. Instead, you let their actions speak for themselves, and you worked in silence to control the outcome. The beauty of staying quiet is that it forces people to show their true colors. While they were busy shouting their lies and spinning their stories, they revealed more about themselves than they realized. Their desperation became obvious. Their contradictions started piling up. Every time they opened their mouth, they dug their hole a little deeper. You didn't need to fight back, because they were doing all the work for you. By staying focused and refusing to engage in their games, you kept your power. You didn't allow them to pull you into their chaos or distract you from your goals. Instead, you used the time and energy they wasted on drama to refine your strategy. The narrative shifted without you ever lifting a finger. People saw the difference. Your calm versus their noise, your integrity versus their schemes. And when it was all said and done, the truth came out. Not because you shouted it from the rooftops, but because their lies couldn't hold up under their own weight. You didn't just control the narrative, you let it control itself. All you had to do was stay steady. And in the end, their dirty tactics backfired spectacularly, leaving you exactly where you planned to be. On top. Number 4. Redefining victory by changing the rules. Victory isn't always about playing the same game as everyone else. When they played dirty, they expected you to retaliate in kind, to fight fire with fire, to meet their schemes with schemes of your own. That's how they wanted the game to go, because on those terms, they had the upper hand. But instead of sinking to their level, you did something they never anticipated. You changed the rules entirely. You refused to meet them in the mud. You chose not to engage in their petty tactics, not because you couldn't, but because you understood that playing by their rules was a losing battle. Instead, you rewrote the game in a way they couldn't keep up with, one where integrity, creativity, and adaptability were the key factors. You built your strategy on a foundation they didn't value, and it completely dismantled their advantage. Dirty players rely on predictability. They expect others to fight back in the same underhanded ways, which makes it easy for them to manipulate the outcome. But when you refuse to play dirty, you force them into unfamiliar territory. They didn't know how to respond to your steady composure, your refusal to stoop to their level, or the quiet but undeniable momentum you were building. You shifted the focus from their chaos to your purpose. They wanted a fight, but you turned it into a showcase of who could think smarter, adapt faster, and stay focused longer. By the time they realized the rules had changed, it was too late. They were playing a game they didn't understand while you were already winning it. In the end, victory wasn't just about beating them. It was about proving that a better way always prevails. Number 5. Embrace the underdog advantage. Being underestimated is one of the greatest advantages you can have, and they handed it to you on a silver platter. The moment they wrote you off, dismissed you as unimportant, or decided you weren't a threat, they unknowingly gave you something priceless: freedom. Freedom to observe them without suspicion, to move without scrutiny, and to plan without interference. They thought ignoring you put them in a position of power, but it did the opposite. Their dismissal was their blind spot, and you turned it into your secret weapon. While they were focused on flashier targets and stroking their own egos, you were quietly working, strategizing, and positioning yourself for the long game. Their lack of preparation became your opportunity to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast them. Every time they underestimated your ability, you used it to your advantage. The beauty of the underdog role is that it removes expectation. They didn't see you coming because they weren't looking in your direction. And when they finally did, it was too late. You'd already studied their weaknesses, anticipated their moves, and prepared yourself for every eventuality. They thought they were safe because they dismissed you, but their ignorance became the crack in their armor. You didn't need to announce your plans or prove your worth up front. You let your actions speak louder than their assumptions. And when the moment came to strike, it wasn't just a surprise. It was a masterstroke. Being underestimated didn't hold you back. It propelled you forward. It allowed you to work smarter, fight harder, and ultimately win on your own terms. The underdog isn't the one with the disadvantage. It's the one with the ability to surprise. And you did that better than they ever could have imagined. Number 6. Turning their chaos into your clarity. Chaos is the preferred battlefield of those who play dirty. They create it to disorient, distract, and force mistakes. But chaos only works when it's met with confusion, and you didn't give them that. While they were busy creating distractions and stirring up conflict, you were quietly studying the mess they left behind. You saw their chaos not as a threat, but as an opportunity. Because within all that noise, they were leaving clues. Dirty players rely on quick, impulsive moves. They act without thinking ahead, assuming the confusion they cause will cover their tracks. But you didn't get caught up in the whirlwind. You stayed calm, watched carefully, and pieced together the patterns. They couldn't see themselves. Their tactics became predictable, their moves easy to anticipate. The very disorder they relied on became your roadmap. Every time they tried to create a new distraction, it only gave you more information. Their chaos revealed their priorities, their fears, and their weak points. They thought they were outsmarting you, but all they were really doing was showing their hand. You used their disorganization to stay one step ahead, preempting their strikes and turning their schemes into stepping stones for your own success. By refusing to let their chaos consume you, you maintained clarity. You knew where you were going and what you needed to do, while they were stumbling over their own confusion. In the end, their dirty tactics didn't derail you, they exposed them. Their chaos became their undoing, and your ability to see through it was what set you apart. They played recklessly, but you played intelligently, and that made all the difference. Number 7. The art of strategic absence. Stepping back is a move most people fear because it feels like surrender. But you understood the power of strategic absence. It's not giving up. It's giving the situation space to reveal itself. When they were playing dirty and trying to drag you into their chaos, you did the one thing they never expected. You disappeared. By stepping back, you avoided unnecessary battles that would have drained your energy and focus. Instead, you created distance, allowing their schemes to unfold without your involvement. You knew that dirty tactics often rely on an immediate response, a fight, a reaction, or some sign that they've gotten under your skin. But when you refused to engage, you left them stranded in their own mess. Their schemes started to crumble under their own weight. Without your participation, they had no one to manipulate or blame. Their desperation grew and their actions became increasingly reckless, exposing their true intentions to everyone watching. Meanwhile, you conserved your resources, quietly preparing for the right moment to re-enter the game. Strategic absence also gave you perspective. While they were distracted by their own chaos, you were observing from the sidelines, gaining insights and refining your approach. You didn't just walk away. You stepped back with purpose, knowing that sometimes the smartest move is letting your opponent self-destruct. When you finally returned, it wasn't to play on their terms, but to end the game entirely. Your absence made them underestimate you, but your return was precise, calculated, and decisive. By stepping back, you didn't just avoid their traps, you made their entire strategy collapse. Sometimes the greatest power lies not in what you do, but in what you choose not to do. Mastery of the long game. Dirty players thrive on quick wins. They cut corners, make loud moves, and revel in immediate gratification, hoping to overwhelm you with their fleeting successes. But you knew better. You understood that while they were focused on the moment, you were building something that would last. You didn't waste energy chasing every small battle. Instead, you committed to the long game, knowing that true victory isn't about who wins today. It's about who's still standing tomorrow. Their short-term victories came with a cost. They didn't anticipate every rushed decision, every shortcut, every scheme. They all left cracks in their foundation. But because they were so focused on the now, they couldn't see how unstable their position was becoming. You saw it clearly, though, and rather than rush to match their pace, you took your time, watching as they slowly undermined themselves. Every move you made was deliberate. While they burned through their resources, you conserved yours. While they celebrated temporary wins, you stayed quiet, calculating your next steps. You weren't just reacting to their plays, you were anticipating their entire strategy, setting yourself up for a victory they couldn't take away. The beauty of the long game is that it rewards patience and foresight. Each of their wins felt big in the moment, but they were hollow, a flash of success that couldn't sustain itself. Your moves, on the other hand, were designed to last. When the dust settled, their tactics left them with nothing, while your careful planning left you with everything. In the end, they were playing for the now, and you were playing for the future. Their victories were loud but short-lived. Yours, quiet, powerful, and built to endure. That's the difference between a dirty player and a true strategist. Number 9. Turning setbacks into surveillance. When they thought they had you cornered, they didn't realize you were actually in the perfect position. They were so focused on the immediate win, so consumed by the idea of knocking you out, that they failed to see how much you were learning from every setback. While they were celebrating their small victories, you weren't fighting to get out of the corner. You were observing, analyzing, and collecting information. Every setback was not a loss, but a chance to gather intel. Dirty players thrive on chaos and confusion, believing that they can break you down by overwhelming you. But what they don't account for is that in the midst of their aggression, they expose their playbook. Every move they make, every strategy they use, every attempt to undermine you became a lesson. You understood that when they thought they were forcing you into a corner, they were actually providing you with the keys to unlock their tactics. While they tried to push you to the edge, you stayed calm, using their actions to predict their next steps. You saw patterns in their behavior, weaknesses in their approach. Where they saw setbacks as their victory, you saw them as opportunities to build a deeper understanding of how they operated. Every setback was a chance to refine your strategy, to gather the intel you needed for the right moment to strike. When the time came, you weren't just reacting, you were prepared. They had played their hand, and now you were ready to use all the information you had gathered to dismantle their plans. They never saw it coming. They thought they had trapped you, but all they did was give you the ammunition to outsmart them. And when you struck, it wasn't out of desperation. It was out of a carefully built understanding of their every move. In the end, their attempt to corner you became the very thing that set you free. Weaponizing integrity as a tactical advantage in a world where shortcuts, lies, and manipulation seem to dominate, choosing to play with integrity isn't just a moral choice, it's a tactical advantage. While they relied on dirty tricks to get ahead, you weaponized something far more powerful, your consistency and authenticity. Where they played fast and loose with the truth, you stood firm, unshaken by their attempts to pull you into their chaos. And it wasn't just about doing the right thing. It was about using your ethics as a tool to expose their weakness. Dirty players expect that everyone will stoop to their level, that everyone will bend the rules to win. What they don't anticipate is the power of someone who refuses to compromise on their values. As they twisted facts and manipulated situations, you remained steady, proving that you didn't need to lie, cheat, or deceive to succeed. And that made all the difference. Their dishonesty became glaringly obvious, in contrast to your unwavering authenticity. It's easy for people to trust someone who plays dirty when they seem to be winning. But when it becomes clear that their success is built on lies, their reliability erodes. You didn't need to say anything to expose them. Your mere presence, grounded in integrity, was enough to show that true success isn't built on manipulation, it's built on honesty. As they scrambled to cover their tracks, you became the symbol of consistency, and that made others start questioning their methods. Your ethics weren't just a shield, they were a weapon that made them look desperate, untrustworthy, and unreliable. People could see who was playing the long game, and who was running on empty promises. In the end, your integrity became the sharpest weapon you had, and it cut through their deceit faster than any tactic they could have imagined. Number 11. The silent coup. Outmaneuvering without confrontation. When they came at you with aggression, expecting you to fight fire with fire, you did something they didn't expect. You didn't engage at all. Rather than meeting their hostility head-on, you turned their tactics into an opportunity to maneuver with precision and finesse. You understood that while they were busy trying to outmuscle you, you could outthink them. And you did it without making a single loud move. You didn't need to confront them directly. Instead, you used misdirection, shifting focus away from yourself and onto their weaknesses. While they were consumed with making noise and looking for their next confrontation, you quietly built influence in spaces they ignored. You aligned yourself with key players not with force or promises, but with subtlety, offering value and building trust behind the scenes. By doing so, you set the stage for a shift in the balance of power, one that they never saw coming. They thought they were winning because they were loud, aggressive, and assertive. Meanwhile, you stayed calm, building a network of quiet support, gently steering situations in your favor without ever needing to engage in the mud they were throwing. You didn't fight back because you understood the true power didn't lie in fighting at all. It was in directing the flow without being seen. And when the time came, when you had the support you needed and the momentum was in your favor, you executed your move. They never saw it coming because from their perspective, you hadn't been fighting at all. But in reality, you were orchestrating your silent coup, outmaneuvering them in ways they couldn't even fathom. Your power wasn't in confrontation. It was in your ability to quietly control the game without ever playing by their dirty rules. Number 12. building an invisible fortress. While they were focused on tearing you down, you were quietly constructing something they couldn't touch. An invisible fortress. Every attempt they made to sabotage you only added to the strength of your foundation. They believed that by striking at you directly, they could break you. But what they didn't realize was that you were already fortifying your position, step by step, brick by brick, in ways they couldn't see or understand. You weren't just building walls of defense. You were amassing knowledge, forging genuine alliances, and cultivating a reputation for reliability that couldn't be shaken. Each piece of information you gathered, each relationship you nurtured, and each time you acted with integrity, you were reinforcing the stronghold they could never breach. Unlike their unstable tactics, built on lies and manipulation, your fortress was grounded in things that lasted. Trust, wisdom, and authentic connections. They might have thrown everything they had at you, but your fortress was invisible to them. They couldn't see how solid your foundation was because they were too busy trying to knock you down. They underestimated how deeply you had invested in your long-term success. They believed that their attacks, however loud or disruptive, would break your will. But instead, you were fortifying your position. As time passed, their attacks became less effective, while your fortress grew stronger. Their chaos was exposed as nothing more than a temporary distraction, while your credibility became undeniable. They couldn't tear you down because they had no idea how much you had already built. You weren't just surviving their sabotage, you were outlasting it. In the end, their relentless attacks only made your invisible fortress more unshakable, leaving you standing tall long after they had burned out. Number 13. Outlasting through adaptability. They relied on a predictable playbook, one built on brute force, shortcuts, and cheap tactics. It was a strategy that worked for the short term, but had a glaring flaw. It didn't allow for growth or adaptation. They were so focused on using the same moves over and over that they couldn't see how stagnant their approach had become. They thought they were in control, but in reality, they were trapped by their own limitations. Meanwhile, you were playing a different game entirely. Your strategy wasn't set in stone. It was fluid, evolving, and responsive. Every time they made a move, you didn't just react. You adapted, adjusting your approach to the ever-changing landscape. Your ability to pivot when needed, to think on your feet, and to adjust to the unexpected gave you a flexibility they could never match. Where they were predictable and rigid, you were dynamic. Their tactics grew stale because they couldn't think beyond their current set of rules. But you knew that real strength lies in the ability to evolve. With every twist and turn, you recalibrated, staying a step ahead and constantly refining your approach. While they were stuck in their old ways, you were always looking for new opportunities, new angles, and new solutions to keep you ahead of the game. And in the end, it was that adaptability that outlasted them. When their predictable tactics stopped working, they had nowhere to turn. They found themselves stuck in a game they could no longer control, while you had already moved on to the next level. Adaptability didn't just help you survive, it helped you thrive. While they played by a playbook that couldn't evolve, you wrote your own, always staying ahead of their every move. In a world where playing dirty often seems like the path to victory, you proved that there's a far more powerful strategy. One rooted in intelligence, patience, and unwavering integrity. While they relied on shortcuts, brute force, and chaos, you adapted, outthought, and outlasted them. You didn't engage in their games, didn't let their tactics dictate your moves, and instead built a foundation of trust, knowledge, and quiet influence that was untouchable. With every setback, you found opportunity. And with every challenge, you refined your strategy. You didn't just survive their attacks, you turned them into stepping stones towards something far greater. By redefining the rules of the game, you didn't just defeat them in the short term, you built a victory that would last. Your adaptability kept you one step ahead, while their predictable tactics left them stranded in their own mess. Through strategic absence, you conserved your strength while they wore themselves out, and through the quiet mastery of misdirection and influence, you controlled the game without ever needing to confront it head-on. Ultimately, your victory wasn't about loud wins or hollow victories. It was about outlasting them in a game they didn't even realize they were losing. You played smarter, not harder. You embraced the underdog advantage and showed that true power comes not from brute force or deceit, but from the art of outmaneuvering and outthinking. In the end, you didn't just outlast them. You redefined what victory really looks like. If you enjoyed this and want to see more insightful content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, and leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic, and if you know someone who could benefit from this, go ahead and share it with them. Let's keep the conversation going and continue to grow together. Thanks for watching.